This is the era of enhancement, you guys. The era of humanity doing as well as it could with its own biology was amazing. And it's about to be over, because what we can do with advanced pharmaceuticals on top of that is just going to get more people into shape. It doesn't replace exercise. It's like another tool in the toolbox. All of your skeletal muscle, when exposed to this drug, starts to burn more calories to upgrade itself, which means you get simultaneous fat loss and muscle gain, which is crazy. You're not exercising, you're just taking a pill. What the is going on? Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for RP Strength, and today I want to talk to you about a drug that is currently in development that is absolutely bonkers. It is just the beginning of this crazy body composition drug revolution that we are all going to be living through, assuming that some of us don't die before 2030. Some of us will, I guess. Well, I just hope it's not Scott, the video guy.
Amen, brother.
It could be me, Scott, but you, my God, the world needs.
That's true.
This drug is called azelaprag. Who comes up with these names? I love this one. And it is an exercise pill. Now, I know what you're thinking. We've been promised one of these for, like a generation. Mice been out there eating that shit, pumping them weights, checking out their trend veins, and even though they're not on trend and laughing at us humans still taking trend, they get to take azelaprag. So let's talk about what it is and how it works. It is a first-in-class oral activator, agonist, which means it does what the normal drug does, of the apelin receptor, also known as the APJ receptor. Now, this is a receptor that is activated by apelin, which is an exerkine, which means it is a protein. It's that gets incredibly high concentrations in your bloodstream right when you're training hard and just afterwards. It is one of the many ways, though seemingly a big way, in which your body tells the rest of itself, hey, we're exercising really hard. Get ready to do all that good adaptation stuff right now and then as soon as we're done. Your body wouldn't really know the rest of it that you're exercising unless it was told by a hormonal or molecular messenger, which is what apelin is. And what this does is you can exercise and get all of the benefits, or you can take azelaprag. I'm not joking. And it activates the same benefits. Now, these are not all of the benefits of exercise, but it's not a few. Let me tell you what happens when you take this completely independent of exercise. Azelaprag turns skeletal muscle tissue that you have into a high octane furnace, which means your muscle takes a ton more glucose and fatty acids out of the bloodstream, which means they can't go to fat stores anymore, and uses them internally to produce energy, adaptations, and more size for muscle tissue. What the hell? When you exercise, everyone knows for the next few hours, even the next few days to some small extent, more food and energy go into your muscles, more cool stuff happens inside of your muscle that costs some metabolic demand from the rest of your body, and it makes your muscles a little bit bigger and more, full of more vasculature and all this other adaptive stuff. Well, azelaprag does all that stuff, but just because you dunked a pill into your mouth, for no reason related to exercise, you're not exercising, you're just taking a pill. And the energy balance goes into the negative. So this muscle, all of your skeletal muscle, when exposed to this drug, starts to burn more calories to upgrade itself, which means you get simultaneous fat loss and muscle gain, which is crazy. And some of the early data is that some of the early sort of preclinical obesity models, some of these are in animals, some of these are in humans, lost 2 times more weight when apelin signaling was boosted by azelaprag than not. 2 times more weight. And this had nothing to do with the people moving more. They weren't. and had no psychological effects that you could tell. They weren't like wigged out or something. Totally physiological increase in energy throughput of skeletal muscles, making them better as if they had exercised and taking the energy that it would take to upgrade them, but for no reason at all that you took a pill. But hold on, it gets better. Animals and humans taking this drug experience an improvement in vascular tone because apelin is a vasodilator and so is azelaprag, which means two things. One, it lowers your blood pressure, which is medically one of the greatest things ever. And two, it causes very likely mind-numbing pumps in the gym because its degree of vasodilation is massive. So, but hold on. It also brings a crap load of carbohydrate into the muscle at all times, loads that muscle up with as much glycogen as possible, and increases vasodilation. So if you are training on this stuff, your pumps are going to be psychotic, your fullness off the charts. Oh, and bonus, at the same time, you're burning fat. What the fuck is going on? Oh, yeah, and you're building muscle too, but why would we do all those things at once? Why not, I guess? And here's the best part. It is not like many of the advanced muscle gain drugs in testing now, an infusion that you have to do, like sit at an IV once a week or once a month. This is a once or twice daily oral small molecule. You just take it in a pill. Guys, what the hell is going on here? And the answer is, every time you exercise, molecular machine cascades are activated and cause every single adaptation you get from exercise, from psychological, all through the physiological, through the energy expenditure, and even through fat loss and muscle growth. And it turns out that, yes, while training is still amazing, I'll get to that later, you can amplify the process of training by taking extra pharmaceuticals that kick those pathways, those same molecular machine cascades, in kind of a very similar way that exercise would, except you just put a pill in your mouth, and that's how you do it. This is the era of enhancement, you guys. The era of humanity doing as well as it could with its own biology was amazing. And it's about to be over because what we can do with advanced pharmaceuticals on top of that is just going to get more people into shape. Now, I bet almost every depressed person you've ever known didn't have abs and veins on their abs. Scott, is that a correct statement? Mm-hmm. See? Now, I'm not saying it's causation, but as sure as shit as correlation, I'm not smart enough to tell those two apart. As far as I can tell, the reason that sharks get irate in the summertime and kill more people is because they hate ice cream. And so many people have it in the ocean. So ice cream really does cause shark attacks as far as I can tell. In any case, here's some more literature insights. They did a 10-day bed rest study where people are bed rested. You're not allowed to leave the bed, like in a hospital. And the study was done in a hospital, thank God. Scott, remember that one guy who kidnapped you and said he was doing a 10-day bed rest study, but it was in his garage?
Yeah, and there wasn't a lot of rest in his bed, if you know what I'm saying.
Physical, yes. Emotional, almost none. Parts of you were not rested whatsoever. Yeah, he was a nice man. 10-day bed rest study in older adults. These are the people that are the most at risk for muscle loss, multiplied into the scenario that is the most muscle loss risking. We know that total inactivity, especially like in the space shuttle or in your bed, it's one of the only times the space shuttle and bed have something in common. Do you guys know what the other time is? It's a place for dreams. Scott, was that gorgeous what I just said?
Beautiful.
You're in bed thinking you're going to be in the space shuttle, but you're really going to be like a loading dock manager and just smoke a lot of cigarettes.
It's accurate.
Yeah, that's life. So 10 days, old folks didn't do shit. And azelaprag prevented roughly 30% of the usual muscle loss just with one pill. That is insane. That is massive. That is not a high dose, by the way. And verifiably kept protein synthesis markers humming along. So it's not just like, oh, it bloats you with water. Real molecular machinery of growth was activated. In addition to that, resting energy expenditure and VO2 max, which are typically dunked if you do a ton of bed rest, stayed level instead of sliding the entire time. This mirrors the metabolic resilience you would get from light endurance work daily for like an hour a day, except with a pill. And the good news is we know from molecular intervention that apelin signaling and azelaprag signaling, same signaling, crosstalks with AMPK and AKT/mTOR, catabolic and anabolic pathways of the cell. And here's the fucked up thing. The apelin system seems to tell the AMPK to ramp up energy production to make energy freely available for the cell. And it also tells AKT/mTOR to ramp up hypertrophy so that that new energy can be taken to move things around to make muscles bigger. Which means that in many cases, if you give azelaprag to animals or humans at the proper dosage and you have them lose a normal amount of weight with a calorie-restricted diet, plus the amount of weight that they lose just from the azelaprag, they end up losing no muscle because there's an anabolic signal from azelaprag, the catabolic muscle breakdown signal from diet and calorie deficit lower that, and it goes back to zero. Guys, a nearly ensured way to lose zero fat. Good God, Scott, I was going to say lose zero fat while losing all of your muscle. Are you tired of muscle? It gets in the way. People think you're on steroids. Ensuring no muscle loss with really high degrees of fat loss is a big deal. And here's the crazy thing. They've mapped this down to muscle fibers, and it turns out that azelaprag preserves faster twitch fiber diameter, which means that these people that got out of bed bounced back to their normal strength almost ASAP because they didn't really lose a whole lot of muscle. Specifically, fast twitch fibers really take a hit in this case. And because we know they didn't, we can surmise that azelaprag targets hypertrophy in the faster twitch fibers at the very least, and probably everywhere else too. And because this drug builds more muscle while potentiating fat burn, it doesn't lead to this Ozempic effect where you diet down and your skin and bones and everything sucks and your metabolism is low. Quite the opposite. It keeps you humming along and gets you Shreddy Krugered instead of zombied out. What a big deal. Now, you might be thinking at this point, "Now, I tell you what, Berth, I don't trust a goddamn thing them big pharma boys been spitting for two reasons. One, I don't understand pharmacology too much because I can barely read. Now, the second reason, number two, is I don't trust city slickers. I'm big city boys from Charlotte, Houston, Birmingham." Scott, did I mention any big cities yet?
You're getting closer.
You're getting closer. All jokes aside, all love and respect. Side effects are a question. But like with this main effect, there's got to be some kind of trade-off, like some super soldier serum that makes you go insane. Remember the super soldier serum that Captain America took? He never really had any trade-offs, did he? He wasn't pissed or anything?
I don't know. I haven't seen any of those movies, so I'll have to take your word for it.
Don't say that in public. That's crazy. What Scott meant to say is he has Captain America tattoo on his anus.
Eric Helms is the only Captain America I need.
Eric Helms is the Captain America. So very well. All right. Here's the crazy part. The side effects are not terrible. One of them is mild GI upset. Okay. Nausea, loose stool, a typical Tuesday for me. And that's what I'm filming. Think about that. What am I filming? Exactly. 5 girls, 8 cups. Some folks got transient headaches, generally short-lived. These are teeny tiny side effects. And some folks in the first obesity trial with this drug, with azelaprag, were flagged with slightly elevated liver enzymes. That's 5% of subjects had slightly elevated liver enzymes, and they actually halted the study and they have to rechange it and they're starting it again in 2026. Talk about safety biased. Teeny problems. Tons of drugs increase your liver stuff. This is a teeny problem. And here's something they described as a problem. Small temporary drops in resting blood pressure, which is expected from the vasodilating effect. Anytime you make the blood vessels bigger, the pressure drops because there's just like more room and same amount of fluid, which is amazing for your health, by the way. But some people, were like, "Oh, I feel a little dizzy." Good is my response. The researchers didn't say that, but I say good because you just have higher than normal blood pressure, almost certainly, because you're in the obesity cohort. So it's good that you feel a little woozy. A couple days later, you get used to it. It's no big deal. No serious hypoglycemia events, low blood sugar events. No unaliving yourself thoughts, which are sometimes seen in some of the other more powerful weight loss drugs. None of these flags have surfaced so far. So very, very limited side effects. And you can manage these side effects at moderate effective doses. Liver safety looks dose dependent. The more you take, the more strain it is on your liver. You just need to find out where your liver is good and take that much. And if it's too much, you stop or reduce taking it. These are very short acting drugs. You take them daily. So as soon as you're off of it a day later, it's like you were never on it. No big deal. You can also, for GI effects, split the dose into 2 pills, one morning, one night, instead of like just one big pill in the morning. That helped a lot of people. Typically, these effects are very individual dependent. Most people probably won't feel a thing on these with GI side effects, but if you do, split up the dose, no big deal. Adequate hydration and salt intake to prevent passing out, but this is really such a small thing with the blood pressure. It's a good thing that you have low blood pressure on this. And that's basically all you have to do to make this drug insanely effective for you. So again, we look at the main effects profile. We look at the side effects profile. It's one of those 20-1, 95-5 type of situations where it seems like compared to pretty much every drug ever made, this drug is a huge hitter and is going to be able to be useful for tons of people because the side effects are teeny tiny and very well managed in most, not all, but most. And then in most people, the actual main effect is insane. And so what we can ask is what kind of benefits do people who just don't exercise get from this drug or will in the future? And we can use animal and human current data to extrapolate to that. Well, you're probably going to get something just with a moderate dose of this drug and no adjustment anywhere, by the way, not to diet, not to anything. Of 4 to 6 extra pounds of fat lost. Well, I guess not extra, 4 to 6 pounds of fat lost over 12 weeks. About just because this drug ramps up your caloric expenditure and just touches nothing else. There's no hunger rebound that is demonstrated. People just keep losing weight. Now, not so quickly, but under the hood, they're losing it and gaining a little bit of muscle, a few pounds of muscle at the same time. Massive improvement in insulin sensitivity. Of course, you would expect this. It clears the blood glucose all the time. And modest increases in VO2 max, which basically is like you get the cardiovascular benefits of a nicely paced daily walk without ever leaving the couch. And to bridge to this next point, if you are also active, the benefits are additive. They just go further. It doesn't replace exercise. It's like another tool in a toolbox. It's kind of like the Navy SEALs show up to Lord of the Rings and they have all their regular armaments and you got like the good guys and whatever. Mos Eisley? No, that's Star Wars. Helm's Deep. Yeah, Eric Helm's Deep. And like, it's not like the Navy SEALs would be like, hey, you guys can all put down your spears and arrows. We got this. I don't know. They're like, yeah, do your regular thing, spears and arrows. Just don't throw it at us. And we'll be on top side picking off giant trolls and whatever we can do to help. It's a combined effort. It's not replacing. So what happens hypothetically if individuals who are on a 500 calorie per day deficit who train 4, 5, 6 times per week, folks like you, what happens when they add this in to their normal approach? And in this case, you might be losing an extra pound per week of fat with 0 muscle loss. It's crazy. It's crazy. We'll have a little bit of data in a second to show you what that looks like in the real world. And the other thing that you can expect is notably fuller muscles, rounder and fuller and tighter because of the huge amount of glycogen that's consistently dragged in by azelaprag. And you're probably getting way better pumps because your vasculature is probably out there because it's a vasodilator and it brings carbohydrates into your muscle. And it helps your muscles recover because it's a big part of what it does under the hood that costs so much energy. So something we would predict is that recovery markers, creatine kinase, which is supposed to be inside your muscles. If your muscles get fucked up, it leaks out. It's like a muscle damage thing. Like Scott, when you see like videos of like a flood somewhere and you're like, that's not that bad. And like a couch floats by, you're like, okay, that's not supposed to be outside of the house.
Yeah.
Clearly water got into where it's not supposed to. That's creatine kinase. Not supposed to be, couch is not supposed to float down the fucking street, and creatine kinase is not supposed to float around your blood. So if you have that, it means you probably trained really hard and got a lot of muscle damage. That's probably going to decline because this thing helps heal muscle damage. And the rapidity of which your delayed onset soreness declines is probably going to be faster. So typically you would train Monday and by Thursday you're ready to go. This might mean by Wednesday you're ready to go, which means you might be able to train 3 times per muscle per week instead of twice. They've done some exploratory work in kind of micro samples with athletes, and pretty much most of the athletes are like, we can just train more. We are not overtraining at typically very high volumes. Makes sense because it's like giving your muscles the switch to be like, hey, let's make adaptations instead of just sitting around waiting for the shit. And so you might get similar losses to some of the lower powered, lower dose Ozempics for fat loss, but concomitantly with either slight gain in muscle or more likely just no change in muscle whatsoever. So when you get back to gaining, you're gaining just from zero. That's a huge deal, humongous deal. Now I have to ask the question of, okay, so like what happens if we add tirzepatide, which is the current best weight and fat loss drug, to this drug? Not technically merge them together, but just like take both at the same time. And the good news here is they pull on different levers. You can envision tirzepatide as something that controls the fridge door, mostly appetite and a couple of other things downstream. But azelaprag turns up the cellular treadmill. It actually turns up the expenditure. And so they dovetail rather than overlapping, which sounds like good news. Now, in mice, the combination of tirzepatide and azelaprag, Scott, you're going to shit your pants. In what would be a human equivalent year of metabolism, the mice hit about a 36% body mass reduction.
Jesus Christ.
Now, they already have drugs like retatrutide that are doing low 20% in a year. This is going to come through with tirzepatide or with retatrutide and start hitting 30% numbers in humans, which means, for the record, folks, there will be many people, hundreds, that start at 300 pounds on these two drugs or similar drugs, and a year later weigh 200 pounds. This is insane. And by the way, they're not like really trying. They're trying, but not in some crazy way. You just take these drugs, eat this diet, and you're good to go. And that's all they have to do. And they're not hungry anymore, so they don't have to cheat on their diet. The Human Strides trial, which they had to pause because of the liver stuff, they were on track to hit over 20% total body weight drop in just 24 weeks of dieting, which is half a year, which makes no fucking sense. And so practically, in the future, taking 2.5 to 5 milligrams of tirzepatide and the appropriate soon-to-be-determined dose of azelaprag. Tirzepatide you shoot once a week. Azelaprag you take once daily or twice daily. And every like 3 or 4 months, you get a DEXA to see what's going on and ride that fucking wave. The only redundancy that we see with these drugs shows up in the side effects sheet. So like, yeah, GI stress plus GI distress equals more GI distress. You'll have to manage that part. But remember, something we say on this channel a lot, a very good, healthy, calorie-controlled diet is your number one weapon against GI distress with these drugs. If you're eating pizza and cookies with these drugs, you're probably going to have a bad time. If you're eating the shit you're supposed to be, lean, protein products, veggies, fruits, whole grains, healthy fats, you're probably going to have a great time. And people are going to be like, what about the side effects? I don't really hear about a lot of those because I'm not doing stupid shit. So let's ask an important question. How soon is this shit going to be out? Well, it is in various phases of testing right now. It is one of the, and I mean dozens of molecules currently being tested by pharmaceutical companies all around the world for this new massive market of fat loss, muscle gain, and body recomposition for everybody. This is a $1 trillion market. And all of the big pharmaceutical companies know that. Since Ozempic blew the roof off the shit and tirzepatide came in and slashed a couple bodies itself, even better than Ozempic, everybody in the industry knows this is the place to be. And they know that muscle loss is one of the big downsides of these early drugs. And so we can have a drug like azelaprag that causes even more weight loss and causes a near complete conservation of muscle. Holy crap. So it's looking like all of these trials will mature around 2027 or 2028. And around those years, some of these drugs, like azelaprag, will be out for human prescription and consumption. Okay. So I said a few things. Azelaprag is probably coming 2028, 2029, 2027, somewhere like that. But there's dozens of other drugs different from it and very much like it that are also being made by a bunch of companies, including the company that's making azelaprag, by the way. What does this mean 2028, 2029, and 2030 are going to look like? And I think they're going to look kind of nuts. And I want you guys to get ready for this. We have drugs currently in not just development, successful animal and human testing with very good ratios of positive effects to side effects that are targeting the myostatin pathway, the activin pathway, the amylin pathway. One of these videos will talk about amylin agonists. They're legit another kind of crazy and a totally different molecule than any of these. We have apelin agonists. And of course, all of the tides, tirzepatide, retatrutide, etc. And loads of other mechanisms that drugs are being tested on successfully today. And lots of these are going to be very safe and effective. And they're going to come out like kind of around 2028. They're going to start hitting the market. A few will hit the market before then. But in the 2028, 2029 area, the drugs hitting the market are going to be like every few months. It's going to be like, oh, wow, like, should I be taking this? And here's the deal. We are going to be, RP as a channel, should we continue to exist then, the robots so allow it, we will help you figure out which one of these is hype, which one is real, how to dose them, how to introduce yourself to taking them and not just taking a ton right away and having terrible side effects, how to periodize them, how to combine them with each other, and how to combine them with the incredibly important diet and training to optimize their effects, because it's going to be mysterious at first and people make some mistakes taking these. But we're going to be with you every step of the way to make sure you're taking these things right, super safely, if you choose to do so. Because here's the thing. It's not drugs and supplements, same thing really, versus diet and exercise. Not for you guys. For some people, sure. But those people wouldn't have diet and exercise anyway, so fuck them. In the best way. Lovingly, with music on, candles even. But for you guys listening to this that already train and diet are really trying to get into it, yes, get into training. Yes, get into dieting and rest and recovery and everything else. And if you so choose, you add these advanced drugs on top and see your results and health skyrocket. Let's go. I'm getting excited. Folks, let me know if you have questions and comments. For the time being, RP Hypertrophy app, RP Diet Coach app can help you square away your diet and your training so that when you're ready for these advanced pharmaceuticals, you can rocket ride. And if the scientists look at the telescope from Earth really far, they'll see your naked butt sticking up out of a moon crater and your legs wiggling because you rocketed yourself right into the moon. That's how we want it at RP and no other way. I'll see you next time.